As we hear the train in the distance and the Curse of Salem music, this is Dungeon Master. I have gone to my supercomputer to find where I can find the dreaded Curse of Dungeon Master's Guild. Now that I'm only a recent member to the guild, having to be age 78 to join, I always wondered why I was getting so caught up in things like probabilities and statistics that had changed my view on why being a dungeon master isn't exactly the cheapest job in the world. But we must look into more of these products, and that the commercial products is kind of staggering because you do buy spells in the magic market, do you not? I think we need to see what the classics are teaching. And that made the same noise as well as I did. Favorite Realms campaign sitting? This is expensive. Forgotten Realms. Forgotten Realms is a dungeon master game. We're going to have to veer away from this spot. We're going back to the internet to find what else there is about dungeon masters. We could get a free adventure. Let's try a free adventure. If there is a free adventure. Well, I'm looking around at the titles, and this reminds me of Character Builder, where nothing ever happens, but that there's a Crypt of the Smoke Dragon portal. It says free, but we still have to sign up for an account. The Dungeon Master has been blasted out of the guild for no other apparent reason than the guild is going swarthy on him and filing him in and out. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeon Master is the recognizable book that we will search for in a minute. What would happen if we search for the Hitchhiker Guide? Sorry for wasting your time and mine. To Dungeon. There is another way we can find this on a list, but the Hitchhiker Guide to Dungeon Master is hiding. And whether it be on this interface or the interface from the menu, I think not. This is a different one. Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeons and Dragons was the name of one of my books, only mine was Hitchhiker's Guide. So we're going after it. We're going after the white whale. We're getting into the mind of the dungeon master himself. And that we have to use cravey, wavy internet is no excuse not to stop and say hi to my friend K.M. Sohag Rana, who is an Iranian star. And I know that this is a lot of Facebook screen on and off time. The supercomputer is charging. And that we must find a way. We have lost one thread. It is a thread of self-destruction. That was not the original intent of my launchers tonight. What we must realize is that above this telescope, there's a key that takes us to the lock, to where we find. And this music overpowers us intentionally so that our instructions aren't heard. And that the Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeon Master is here. Now this is an interesting site because this is what we were looking for. And that there aren't many pictures here, I must describe. We are not going to spend the whole time here, but this was the site we were looking for. The book Discovery, with no thematically derivative way to say it, has been put out of possession of any more books belonging to this site because of the fact that not only the film is hazy, but because getting the rights to all these dungeon masters was an arm and a leg. And when I say arm and a leg, I mean the leg of a dwarf and the arm of an elf. And you try putting those on backwards and see what kind of a skip to my loo you'll have. But that, The Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeon Master, accompanies a whirlwind of poetry, is not even the crash coincidence that everything around you is hazing in, and you're picking up what you could have read on the screen, but that it scrolls by like a dungeon master cart and discusses philosophy of dungeon master and explains the Amsterdam one is real, and how you can bring real experiences into the game of hitchhiking, how it works for D&D. But I have a feeling that other site came after this one, and there's no way to date it, but that it's all fair game and freelance, we must realize. Now we're going to a hard boot of what would happen in the slamming coincidence of a dungeon master login create account, free 5th edition adventures. We saw the Dungeon Master Hub. The Dungeon Master Hub is a delightful guide to what is good in time and space. The Dungeon Masters Guild is actually posting on X, which is Twitter, that one character, this tier 1 character set in Sigil, the City of Doors. The City of Doors, like The Doors, the band. This music kind of sounds like The Doors a little bit, like if they were crossed with Pink Floyd or something. But they're not that good. They're good, but they're like the Bard level good. They just play the same song, and it's their favorite song to play over and over. And I'm in the band, I should know. Now, that I didn't trust the guild, even on Facebook, is wild, because I'm in the Wizards of the Coast as this dungeon master, and I'm fully trained, but that I have never had a Twitter match, even X match, of Dungeon Masters Guild, is so much intensity that I wonder if I should apply to the Dungeon Master Guild. But I would have to do that with a computer system I'm on, and not this X coincidence. But perhaps I will join the Dungeon Masters Guild through a loophole that I already have my certification for Wizards of the Coast, and that I'm a member makes me so terrified to think that they're also superior to me, and that's the way it works. What is Dungeon Master Guild? Do we dare do it? No. Now, that there's a video in here is terrifying me, but I think I found the driver, and I'm sorry you didn't get to see this, but it's really like precious operation. And I'm clicking here. The hand you've seen is clicking here, but that it's a very low-tech site is not to say that there aren't pictures. The drive-through RPG versus Dungeon Masters Guild, and drive-through RPG is definitely supporting these different units of D&D. This list of people talking about things about the guild is really off, because the forum was not one that was often used, and almost a cul-de-sac of forums, that the Dungeon Masters Guild is all over this site. We must go to it on Instagram. We must go to the Dungeon Masters Guild on Instagram. And I don't always use Instagram, but that we have the pictures of the games that were once taught to us as the Dungeons and Dragons experts would have to be to veer through these days, these 12 days of Christmas, even as pagan, with dragons. And there's dragons on the cross, the tree. And the tree the wood is made from the tree. The wood is cut from the tree and made into the cross. Aristobulus' catalog of consumables. Instagram is giving us a door, and we must leave behind Instagram for having no photos whatsoever of the place. We're going to look at the complete guide for new users, especially if they're Dungeon Master Guild, and if I have to find Dungeon Master Guild after this recording of Dungeon Master onto tape. This looks interesting. It's not the guide. The guide is available, but for money. And mine is the Hitchhiker Guide, which you saw was connected to my Facebook menu. And that's how that happens. But there is a gnarly one. He flies through the air and he twists and turns left and right and he stays up high levitating. Is just his sack of guilt. And what is this? A bat that's taken across with wings, and he's spraying the fire flame torture toward the skeletal mass. And that's why the dragon blew flame on the villagers who never returned from their magma form. And this is an angel with wings, situated with his other angels, who are bound to forget that one lost his wings and one has a helicopter behind him. And the other one is Hawkeye Man, who is in the world of DC, as well as Dungeons and Dragons, and it's hard to explain which came first. But that must have been some young dungeon master. Well, we're going to have to take a chance on this. The 15 best D&D monster books for 5th edition. Well, that looks like Thorin Oakenshield from another battle that he's coming in from. And I apologize for the static earlier, and the static during the internet is at its fastest speed, and this menu is at its glaringly best. That we have Monster Manual is in 15th place. The Monster Manual, a key item you will need. Volo's Guide to Monsters I have actually read, and it's very good. Monsters of the Multiverse, that would be a good one. The Book of Fiends, wow. Let's look at the Book of Fiends. No, we can't handpick any of them. But these pictures are rather small, but you can see them blown up a bit. Despite the ultimate bestiary, the dreaded accursed. Ultimate bestiary, Revenge of the Horde. Grim Hollow Monster Grimoire. What's going to be the number one monster book if the Dungeon Master's preferred one was already 17? Level Up Advanced. Monstrous Menagerie. Creature Codex, that would be a good one. The Lazy DM's Forge of Foes. Monster Manual Expanded 1. Number 3. The Tome of Beasts 3. I should have known that was right. My next word gonna say. Flee Mortals. That's not a very scary one. They make it sound worse than it is. The monsters know what they're doing. I thought it was going to say the monsters know who they're dying for. And if the monsters know who they're dying for, then monsters believe in God too and have just the same right to pray. But the monsters usually aren't seen to pray because that apparatus in their brain is disabled in their Dr. Frankenstein construction of clones and whatsoever else. Now that we must retreat, Dungeon Masters Guild again, but to find our way back in that picture loop we were just in, would we not instead just want to follow this? The pictures of 1,000 hordes. There's the Journals of Kaz the Minotaur, and these are all Wizards of the Coast AD&D books to get you through the Skulkwood Crag. And so we have to go to Skulkwood Crag, a bleak mountain trail in Alta. Well, I hope you're not desecrating the altar, because that would be to bring about the evil form of Skulkwood and Crag, and that's why we had to look at that up close. But that's the only page we can maneuver around, unless we check out the Twitter again, which is keeping me locked out, but how the gobs stole midwinter. And then we get kicked off into another support group, which is for ex-Twitter employees that have to only use Twitter on a different computer, which makes no difference because I forgot my password. See, I was going to tell the world tonight my password, but I forgot it. And then I'm trying to recover it. Isn't what I'm going to tell you because I just keep everything with the old password the way it is. But I have no idea what my original one was, and it kind of makes me a fool that I don't send interface between the phone. But Twitter can be accessed in other places. As you saw, Dungeon Master had already lifted on Twitter in my form. Now, if there's one thing I've courage to do, it's to go back to the sister site, the mothership. Go back to the mothership and you get these sort of dungeons set up for you. That these dungeons are trollingly set up and allowed to be used is my own way of saying that there are dungeons available that we've even been through. And that we've been through those dungeons is only going to make it all the most profound when I take you through. Now, if this is today's Dungeon Master, why did the Dungeon Master not show up on yesterday's plane? Unless this was just set in the stone that this was a film, not because this film is the replacement of it, or not the next episode, but that we are now in yesterday's dungeon doing things today, not making sense, because somehow this video had come back to light, and this video was already coming through on other mediums, but wouldn't conform to how far down these logos had become. And if we do foresee, we have to trail this up. We have to somehow make this majesty of the page. Nothing else can slam us. That we must find that George Lucas is counting on us, and that we count on him more than he counts on us. But he counts on us too, to have a sturdy project, to have it tidy, to not have the liminale of 27, except that it's playing in this bottom menu. It's only available out here. But is there a Dungeon Master we prefer to see? Well, in my eyes, I liked this one. Now that is Dungeon Master playing Dungeon Master, but that's not the real Scribe episode I was looking for. The one with the angels that move around is so buried that I'd have to repeat the Pokemon footage, but I'm going straight for the jugular. I'm going to the Dungeon Master tapes, whatever one this is. Oh, it's sending me right to a different Dungeon Master.
The Dungeon Master emerges in the cloudy nebula.
I've seen this Dungeon Master. It's Dungeon Master in space. I miss Dungeon Master in space, but I got a crick in the neck playing it. That it was everything I ever believed in without a space. And that I've only been to that cavern once that leads to the black holes in the sky where the stars used to be. And I remember the soliloquy we once had with Diamond Rue. They said, the last but not least, the champion of feast, the day looking by, the spot in the sky, the ultimate rail, the feeling we are impaled, and ride the train outward, because we're gonna show. I said, that is the end of Dungeon Master 28. Or was it 27? Or both? Or do we have another one really to catch up on? And is this new motherboard computer all it's cracked up to be? Dungeon Master will put this computer to the test, and we have found rare sites, the author's book, Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeon Master. We've even seen a Hitchhiker Guide to Dungeons and Dragons, which was clearly someone else's idea around the same time I had mine and became Dungeon Master forever. And that I had to prove that I had the most levels of Dungeon Master that I could. And I'd like to tell you one more thing. Oh, no, that's okay. You can go. Goodbye for now.